Okay, we're going to give you our secret bread recipe that my beautiful French girlfriend gave to me. She designed this one and it's super simple. First, you need a yeast agent. Let's say a good old tablespoon. We need to add our water. How much? Again, it's all a matter of feel. I'm going to stir the yeast powder into the water. I'm going to let this sit here for 10 minutes. Next step, all-purpose plain flour. This one is an unbleached flour, nothing fancy. Good couple of scoops in there. So we have to soak up all this moisture in here. So I've done 4, what are these? 2/3 cups. It doesn't matter how many cups of water or how many cups of flour, it's about the consistency at the end. That's what most people don't get correct. The last thing we're going to do is add in some salt. Now, I use a fork in the beginning and you just mix it around until all the flour is soaked up by that water and that yeast mix with the salt mixed in there as well. And you'll start to get one solid ball together. Now it's too sticky, it's definitely too sticky. It's not even close to being a proper dough yet. So we go back to our flour and we just load in our flour again because we need to make sure that consistency is correct. This is where I'll get rid of my fork and get my hands into it. This is where you start kneading the flour into the bread. But you'll start getting a little bit more elastic dough. Now I usually will knead my dough for about 3 minutes. So now we've got our dough, we've sort of made a ball. I can feel it's a little bit sticky in some places, just on the edges. So a little dusting of flour, because you don't want your dough to be sticky. You want your dough to be smooth to touch without sticking to your fingers. So I usually make a ball like that, nice and smooth on the top, and the bottom looks like not so pretty, but that's okay. You'll find the top is smooth, covered in flour, and the bottom is sticky. I pop it back into my tray, and usually I just give it a roll around. Last thing, I need to shape this type of bread that I want to do. We cook ours on an upside down tin on a bit of alfoil with some flour. So I just dust the base with flour, I plonk it in the middle, and then I shape it a little bit longer. Now don't forget it's going to rise. I like to add a little bit of flour on top, just like that, and I dust it in with my fingers. It's a nice thick layer of flour, which is going to give you a really good finish on top. My more technical side, my artistic flair. I'll just do a little incision there. Another one across there, not very big, quite shallow, and one there. What we do is, well, Alen puts a pasta strainer over the top. I put 2 little things like that. I've made myself a tent with a moist tea towel over the top. My piece of dough is just sitting in the middle. Let's come back in about 40 minutes. That will have doubled in size, and we'll whack it in a hot oven and see what happens. Ours is really hot. It's about 400 degrees, and that must be Fahrenheit. It's been about 45 minutes now. So she's risen, she's doubled in size, and she'll get bigger in the oven again. The oven's super hot. Let's get the bread in there. Do not open the door, do not touch it, and let it sit in there for at least 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, you'll be able to open it because you're going to already have a crispy layer. Turn it over, have a look at the bottom, and if you have to, flip it over and cook it on the top for a little while. Let's have a look in 40 minutes. It's been 49 minutes, and let's have a look if it's done. Yep, nice and firm and crispy. We can pop this out. Pop. Crispy on the outside, and this is the pattern that it gives you on the incisions when you do it. So the first thing you're going to want to do when it comes out of the oven is get a sharp knife and cut it open and eat it. Don't do that. You've got to give it 10 minutes to cool down. Otherwise, what you'll end up doing, first, you're going to burn your hand, and secondly, you're going to tear the bread to shreds. It's got to let it set for 10 minutes. But we're not going to wait 10 minutes because I'm starving. So let's cut it open. We'll knock the end off, and we'll see the consistency in here. Let's have another slice and see what she's like. So you can see these little moist bits here. That's because it didn't get time to cool down. You've got to let it cool down, give it 10 minutes. It'll continue to cook on the inside, and it will rest itself, and then you won't end up with these little doughy bits. My personal favourite, cheese and Vegemite, goes absolutely perfect together. Alen's mum's homemade jam. Doesn't matter what you do with it. You can toast it the next morning. You can have it for lunch. Very easy, cheap and simple. If you don't think your bread has a good consistency. Just cook it a little bit longer and it'll end up being light and fluffy rather than doughy. Good luck.